half hour into the session, we're dealt king jack offsuit in the cutoff. It's a straddle pot. I raised to 30. The small blind calls, the big blind calls. We're going 3 ways to the flop in position. It comes king 7-3 with 2 hearts. We've got top pair and a decent kicker. It checks to me. There isn't too much to worry about other than the flush draw. Still, we can't just be giving tourists free cards on the strip. It's best to leave that to the escort service promoters. They're professionals. I bet 50. The small blind believes that's a fair price. He calls. The big blind folds. It's down to heads up. The turn is another king. We've got trips. The small blind checks. Since 3 kings are accounted for, it's much more likely that the opponent has a flush draw, a pair of 7s, or potentially has a pocket pair like 8s. In his mind, it's probably not likely that all of a hand is strong as the one I've got. I try to play into that by betting 140. It's a little on the larger side. That doesn't seem to bother the opponent. He calls again, and now I'm somewhat suspicious that he could have a king or maybe even a full house at this point. We don't need to worry too much because the river is the jack of hearts, giving us the absolute nuts. We make a backdoor full house. On top of that, the flush draw gets there. All the stars have aligned for us to win a huge pot. The small blind checks himself before he wrecks himself. This one's teed up for us. I get a running start, then bet 400 to Happy Gilmore it and drive it home. I should be able to get called by any other full house, a flush, trip kings, or maybe even a worse hand if the opponent doesn't believe me. The player is deep in the tank. He doesn't seem to want to let me have this one without putting up a fight. That's totally fine with me. Ultimately, he makes the call. We show him the best possible hand. It turns out that we needed the jack on the river because the opponent chose for the vlog that he had us absolutely dominated with ace king.
Ooh, wow, that's sick.
I was expecting to maybe see king queen, but since he didn't 3-bet pre-flop, I couldn't put him on big slick. This is a good example of how well I've been running lately. Even when everything appears to be set up for me to lose a big pot, I'll somehow get bailed out. Poker's a lot of fun when you're on the right side of coolers. When you're consistently on the wrong side, there isn't much that's worse. Next we look down at 7-4 hearts in the big blind. The button raises to 15. The small blind calls. I'm getting a good price with suited cards that can make a straight. I call. We're going 3 ways to the flop without high expectations since our starting hand isn't great, but 7-4 of hearts under promises and over delivers. The dealer puts out 6-5-3 with 2 hearts. We've got a straight with an open-ended straight flush redraw. I had a royal flush draw in the session from earlier today at Bellagio, so this is the 3rd straight flush draw that I've had within a short time frame. I've still never captured my own straight flush on a vlog. It'd be cool to do it here. The small blind checks. I check to the pre-flop raiser hoping that he'll have something or will at least make a bluff attempt. He comes through with a bet of 35. The small blind calls. I've got almost nothing to worry about. If I didn't have hearts, I'd raise. Since I've got 2 of them, I call. All 3 of us are still in, and the turn is the queen of clubs. The small blind checks. Let's see if the button wants to fire a second bullet. I check to him again. He may suspect that something's up after getting 2 calls on the flop. He checks back. The river is the 4 of diamonds. It's a terrible card since now there are 4 to the straight. It's possible that someone else is taking the lead with 8-7 or is chopping with us, or will no longer want to put any more money in the middle. The small blind checks. I can't allow this to check through. I bet 110 in order to represent a fake missed flush draw. The button has air and folds immediately. Not the small blind though. He snap calls.
Locked it, but 2-3. Oh, low end.
It turns out the 4 was actually a great card. We may not have gotten paid off if it had been something different. The small blind has spent way too much time studying revenge range charts and gets punished for playing 3-deuce offsuit. We capitalize and are up over 1100. As smooth as things are going, it's about to get even better since we've got pocket aces under the gun. An old friend from high school called me right before I looked down at him, so I had to tell him I'd call him back, and I missed filming the pre-flop action, but I raised to 15. 5 players called to wreck my world. We're going 6 ways to the flop, and obviously have no chance of winning. It comes 5-4-4 rainbow. That's actually about as good as it gets without improving and having so many other opponents. It's check to me. I should be able to get plenty of value from other overpairs. I bet 50. A player in middle position folds, the button folds, the small blind folds, the big blind folds. Somehow no one had a better hand. We get it through. I bluffed a couple of times. I like to control my image, so I show that I actually had it here.
I'd say the aces on that one. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, kid.
If you remember the beginning of this hand, I told you that 5 players called me pre-flop. Only 4 folded. The hijack called in the 1 seat, and I didn't see it, then exposed my hand. I was distracted, plus I'm a complete idiot. Not a fun spot for me to be in. The hijack is working with a lot more information than I have and may start firing big bets as a bluff to try and get me off aces, which may or may not work for him. He could also really have a monster hand like quads or a boat. After all, he called me when I bet into 5 players. Luckily, he suggests a solution.
You want to take it down? Or if you don't mind, I mean, yeah.
There's obviously a lot of confusion at the moment, all caused by me since I didn't accurately follow the action, but the opponent is cool. He says that we can check it down, or I can bet the turn with the implication that he has a worse hand and will fold. I'm always going to take option number 2 to bet the turn and end the hand as soon as possible. The dealer puts out the 10 of diamonds. I bet 15, expecting the player to fold like he made it seem he would. This is when things get even crazier. The dealer thought that we were just checking it down and puts out the 9 of diamonds on the river.
I thought you said you said 50. I said second down. Yeah, I thought you said bet the turn just so I can. Oh, I didn't hear that part, but that's why I was laughing. Oh, he said okay. I said okay on checking it down, and then I thought you said if you want to check the turn. Check it down. Yeah, that's why you did. And then I thought you said if you want to bet the turn. I didn't say anything.
I'm super confused because I obviously thought that I heard the player suggest that I bet the turn, but now he's denying it, and the dealer didn't hear anything about betting the turn. The hijack seemed to be trying to play friendly. I feel like a complete jerk for betting when... Hold on. Let's play back the audio from previously.
Alright, I mean, yeah. Alright, I mean, yeah. Alright, I mean, yeah.
I don't know what the hell is going on. This is very embarrassing for me, though.
I thought you meant...
Is this gonna go on the vlog?
I hope not.
I'm sorry. Alright, so, I mean, whatever. I'll just...
Okay, alright.
The player shows that he has pocket 10s for a turn full house. Now everything makes a lot more sense. The opponent told me that we could check it down, or made it seem like he'd fold to a turn bet when he had the worst hand, but after hitting a 2-outer and me betting, he all of a sudden forgets saying anything about a turn bet and seemed to be contemplating a raise for value. This is up there with the strangest hand that I've ever played. Again, it all started from me making a mistake. That mistake somehow ends up working out huge for me because otherwise I would have gotten sucked out on and would have lost a much bigger pot. The opponent would have at least gotten 2 more bets out of me, but I miraculously get bailed out again, this time by messing up.
Oh, okay. All right.
Wow. What a good mistake. Wow.
No. Here. Yeah. Gee, that was a weird one.
The more the hijack thought about what happened after the hand, the more he was bothered by it, and I don't really blame him. He for sure would have made more money had it played out normally. I feel bad about the situation, and I tossed him $100 to ease the tension a little. I wanted to try and make things as fair as I could and make everyone feel okay about moving forward. That seems to do the trick. We're dealt pocket kings under the gun. I raised to 15. A player in middle position calls, the hijack calls, the big blind puts in a tiny 3-bet to 55. I'm not going to flat this and allow the other 2 players behind me to come in. I 4-bet to 165. The middle position opponent and the hijack fold quickly. The big blind is a bit stickier. He calls. We're heads up in what's already a big pot. The flop comes ace 5 deuce all spades. That's not what I wanted to see. I consider exposing my hand again to see if we can check it down, or if the opponent will fake agree to fold if I bet turn. That trick usually only works once per session though. The big blind checks. Rather than check back, I bet 100 to deny equity in case he has a smaller pocket pair with a spade. I'm happy to get a fold as well. If the opponent calls, I'll still keep control of the pot, and I can check back turn in order to get to the river cheaper than if I check here and possibly face a large bet from the opponent on the turn. The big blind calls. The turn is the 3 of hearts. I doubt that I'm up against a straight considering this is a 4-bet pot. The opponent checks. I continue with my plan to check back in order to keep this pot small and hopefully get to showdown as cheaply as possible. The river is the 6 of hearts. The big blind checks. If he doesn't have an ace, we should be good. He probably would have bet with a better hand than kings, but I don't know if he necessarily called bet with anything worse. I check back. I'm glad that my plan worked to get to showdown. The big blind shows that he has pocket 9s with a spade. He had a lot of outs. Luckily, they didn't come. We win a nice pot with second pair. I play for 30 minutes longer. Then it's time to rack up and eat with Andrew and a few other friends.